interesting about your movie, why I made a curator's pick of the Hollywood Fringe Festival. Community, heart, you're doing it. Crazy Dee.
This is another great episode of the Film Review. What's going on, people? How you doing there?
Hey.
This is another great episode of the Film Review.
Yeah.
Movies, music, culture, politics, and society.
Yeah.
We are the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy Dee.
I'm Tracy.
And we review movies, music, culture, politics, and society. And do we have a great one for you today?
Great film.
As we bring some headroom. We've got a great show for you today, and we're going to be doing some population like we usually do. So we need you to stay tuned for that. So how was your week?
Great week. Weather was nice.
Yeah,
This week actually flew by quickly.
It really did fly by. Can you believe that we're in May? And we're getting ready to move into May, June, July. And this is standardly the time from when I was way back before retail, when I would be putting projects out. I say, if you don't have something already planned in the wintertime to come out about right now, you are not going to have anything. You have to plan ahead of time to make what's going to happen. The weather in Las Vegas is interesting because it's getting warmer finally. It broke, right? Usually it breaks, like we've said before. Usually it breaks early and you're into it before you really know it. You're into it, right?
Yeah.
But this year it's slightly different. The film review is on. Right? So I'm going to tell you that. The film review is on. We'll start the watch party. Now look. So it's really interesting. Let me turn the volume down. This is interesting. So it's like, it's usually warmer and it's hitting and it's a dry heat, but now it's it has humidity and you can feel the coolness in the air, even though usually the sun would beat on you and it's a dry heat, and you have to use your perspiration that happens with the dry heat, and then it kind of cools you. Now it's kind of a cooling air, and the dry heat isn't there as much, which is strange for Las Vegas. I'll say it has to do with the building. I always keep my mask on. They're building new buildings, expanding the strip and everything, right? So I always keep my mask on. I was keeping my mask on before because I learned about this thing called desert fever. And desert fever is a monster. It makes you feel like you have a cold. And if it's misdiagnosed, you're pretty much out of there, right? What's going on, Stu? Thanks for chiming in. So the weather is different. Now, we always love it when May comes around, because it's the time that me and my wife met. Right? We met at Cleveland State University. She is my college sweetheart, right? We met in May, and then we found out something very interesting about each other, right? We found out, what did we find out about May?
That we are,
let's go.
Well, at the time, I didn't believe you.
Okay, so tell the story. So we're sitting there and we're getting to know each other, right?
And then I said my birthday is May 4th, and then you said yours was May 24th, and I didn't believe that your birthday could possibly be in the same month as mine. So I asked for proof. I asked to see your driver's license.
And when I put our driver's license, come to find out we were born in May.
Yeah.
Her birthday comes before me a year later, and mine comes before her, but after her the year before, right? So I always say I am so blessed to have had my wife conceived in August of 1971
goodness gracious.
And brought to this life in May 4th, 1972. You understand? And for me, I was conceived in 1970 in September, right? Of 1970 to be brought to this life, brought out after 9 months, May 24th, 1971. So, you know, it's beautiful. So there's a couple of different things going on with that as we go through it. First, May, and then August. August is, as we learned through watching 1804, the Ogun spirit, right?
Yep.
So the Ogun spirit is moving through all of this, right? And then later on, we were married in August.
Yep. The 8th.
That's August 8th, right? So we always, so from May through August, and then through September, because I was conceived in September, we always celebrate, right? And people say, you know, you were married a certain time later. What's going on with what it is? Okay, so people don't necessarily read the Bible the way that it was written. When you read how there's a couple of different times when you're reading the Bible and it talks about how man and woman come together to be married. There's Adam and Eve. I'm giving 3 examples, you know, because it always comes in threes in the Bible for you to get the point of the story, the parable or the metaphor or whatnot. So it always comes in threes. So I'm giving it to you in threes. There's Adam and Eve. There's Sarah and Abraham. Well, it was Sarai and Abram before, and then there is Sarah and Abraham's son Isaac, and the person that his main soldier or trusted person to go out to find the right bride from the land that Abraham came from. They find Rebecca and they bring Rebecca back, and so all of this has already been structured already, because the father has sent out, so it becomes an arranged marriage and the person goes. So that's why when you hear the part where the person has to go and ask for the person's hand in marriage, that it comes from this particular story in 24, chapter 24 of Genesis, right? So that's where people get the idea of going to ask for the person's hand in marriage and to go through and discuss the business of what is what, why it's being done, etc., okay? So that's what you learn in that. So this is the different things where they take it from. Now, when you get to Artisha.
I apologize for pronouncing your name incorrect.
Yeah, thanks for chiming in.
Yeah.
She owns the Soul Food Yum down in the North Las Vegas. She owns that. They have great food. You need to go down there. You need to patronize black businesses. Want to shout out to you. Thanks for chiming in. So what you find is that when you get to chapter 24, verse 67, Rebecca gets off the camel and she sees Isaac approaching, and she asks the Abraham's main guy, who is that? He said, that's my master. That's Isaac. Basically, that's who you're coming to chosen to be, right? So she puts her veil up. So she's in Arabia, what you would consider Arabian gear, you know, and, you know, riding a camel and all that. And she puts her veil up, right? So this is why it's good to be in the desert. And when you're in a desert climate, you wear a mask, right? To block out the wind and the dust that comes from storms, right? So you learn this, and these are little things that you learn when you're in different climates. So she gets off and she's talking. She says, who is that? So she puts her veil up. Isaac comes up and he takes her by the hand. He leads her into Sarah's tent. Sarah, his mother, has passed on, right? The reason why Abraham goes to find a bride to keep the line going is because, you know, he's up in age now, and so he wants to make sure that the line keeps going, right? So she's in the, so he leads her to his mother's tent, and it reads, he takes her and they are married. See what I'm saying? So there's no preacher. Now sometimes you can hear it read that he takes her, in other passages when they talk about other persons, he takes her, they become one, and they are married. That's more like the Adam and Eve story. There's no preacher there. The preacher situation comes when the state gets involved, and for state reasons, you want to be recognized for the state, for the science, mostly because the marriage certificate, like the birth certificate, can be traded upon for money. It's like a gamble, like, are you going to make it or aren't you going to make it? And if you make it or not, the state gets paid, either if you make it or you don't make it. And so that's what the marriage certificate is for, right? So that everything is above board on the legal, on the state side. But really, when a man and a woman come together as one, they are married. And so I often ask people who follow what the state says, what the European says, and I say, how many wives do you have, actually? How many husbands do you have? You know, I just asked that, you know, just in saying what I'm saying, right? So that's that. So when you see Crazy Dee and we say 29 years, we have been together 29 years. I believed in when we became one, we're one, and I forsake her for no one else. And that's the way, and she has forsaken me for no one else. So that's what it is. So it's a more of a understanding from actually like reading and actually just being right there in it and fighting through it.
Hey, Shani.
Hey, what's going on, Shani? Thanks for chiming in. So that's what it is. So we celebrate 29 years together. We celebrate our birthdays, and we celebrate August,
right?
Most because we got married within the strength of it all. Right. And who knew?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Right? Who knew? And it all started with, like what we said on the Conversation and Wine with Tamika and Jazzy.
Yes.
When I said it all started with some Uno cards, and it did. And see,
and Shani remembers that day.
Yeah. See, what happened was we were in this program that made you like a super freshman by the fall. You would come in during the summer, learn the campus, and while other freshmen were just bumbling around, you would, know the campus. So we came in on this program, and we had like different meetings where they wanted to get to where people got to know each other, and they would ask you, who were you inspired by?
Right.
And of course, myself, I said, I'm inspired by Malcolm X, right? And you said,
well, I was surprised that you said that because at the time, well, out here, I don't think they don't have Black history courses for the students in elementary school, right? Isn't that one of the
I think that's one of the things that they're getting ready to implement now, since what's been happening in the school system.
So growing up back home, as far as like in Black History Month, they only told you about like just a few people. You only learned about a handful of
mostly Martin Luther King. You were slaves and things
so
like
back
that.
home it was basically the same way, So, but when he talked about Malcolm X and he did his, he said he influenced him. His presentation was on him. He was inspired by him. I was surprised because everybody that spoke before him, they all basically said Martin Luther King. And I love Martin Luther King as well and respect him as well, but it was just different to hear somebody mention someone else other than Martin Luther King. That made me say, oh, he studies outside of what's presented to him, in school. Like I said, they only gave us a list of few Black leaders, although we have so many Black leaders and inventors, and they only give us just a few.
Just a
children,
few.
right?
Children. And really as adults, really.
Yeah. And so when you gave your presentation on Malcolm X, I was impressed because, I knew about Malcolm X, and his birthday is May 19th. So when he talked about him, I was impressed. I said, oh, this guy is different. He didn't just, just a lazy report. Oh, let me just pull out Martin Luther King like everybody else. Mm-hmm. He actually did research and talked about him. Hey, Gary.
Thanks for chiming in. Hey, that is Gangster Nut. He has his own car wash in Cleveland, Ohio, and he puts out jamming music. Okay. And when you watch the film review music review show, right? When you watch that, you will see that there is an artist on there named TG, and he hooked me into TG. Heard the video, heard the song, said, let me get it. He sent it over there to me, and he's up there now being seen, heard, recognized, and appreciated. So shout out to Gary Jackson, Gangster Nut, and he's going to be bringing out music. And, you're going to hear it on the film review, music review show coming up soon, right? We're going to be talking about that too. So,
and also speaking of like, you talked about music, but also in film, like Stu is in numerous.
That's right. Stu is in numerous films. Yeah. He's the preacher. Yeah. He's the main protagonist in A Preacher's Life.
Yeah.
And again, when you watch
Stuart Elsie.
Yeah, Stuart Elsie. When you watch
Algie.
When you watch the music review show from the film review, you will see a short clip from A Preacher's Life, and then you can go right over to lordlandfilms.com and actually watch A Preacher's Life. So what I instantly learned about my wife was that she was different than what I had seen and had dealt with before early on in my life, because I was the type of person that, hey, what's going on, Eddie Bell? See you chiming in. Yeah. She was different than what I had dealt with before of trying to talk to, because I was the type of person that was looking for my Rebecca, my Sarah all the time. And we had met back in junior high school. or even elementary school. We probably would have been together all that time, because what you really find, people, as you go along, as I just watch people and learn from people, is that there's really nothing out there other than the great one that you have, right? So you cling to each other and you make it happen, and that's what it is. That's what's good about marriage and everything, because there's really nothing out there, right? So this is what I noticed. So I noticed that she was different, and her mind clicked on a totally different level.
Hey, Jackie.
Hey, thanks for chiming in. And so, you know, that it was very interesting, and I love that. And we are deeply, and we keep it moving, and we push to make sure that we do this film review, and we do everything. Like, my wife is the person that is behind the camera when I'm on film, right? Because she knows my angles. She knows what I'm looking for. So she's skilled in camera work, and we do this together, and we make sure that people are seen, heard, recognized, and appreciated. That's our purpose. We believe that's our purpose here on the planet. And when you go through life, when I talked to her, it was like she could finish my sentence. And that's what my mom always told me. She always told me, it reinforcing from what? Because I read the Bible when I was 12. I ran through it, went through it, read the inner liner notes, went to the different passages, read it through. When you get to Leviticus is some of the longest reading ever, because that is the law put down, and you have to read it and you figure out, what's going on. But my mother said that when the person is right for you, they will finish your sentence. You won't have disagreement. You won't have that. They will finish your sentence. And in that passage that I talk about in Genesis 24 with Rebecca and Isaac. Rebecca and Isaac, when Rebecca came off the camel and she put her veil up, when he led her into the tent, she was in total agreement with what was taking place. You see what I'm saying? So when you read the Bible, you read more than just for you read for the life lessons, because the world is a life lesson. And how you know it's true is you just look at it and apply it in the world that you're in, and that's how you know if it's true indeed, right? And so that's why we're here. And this is one of the special shows. We open with 29 years, and we're gonna have special shows going on coming in, because my birthday comes down on the 24th, right? It's gonna be a working birthday. That's why I always like to do. I like to work. You know what I'm saying? We got people coming in special in May, and then we go all the way through, and we're coming into August, and we're gonna have special shows there too. So it's always a special show. It's always a special show, and I always love when I see husbands and wives do their thing together, because it's condoned by the inner God or the outer God, whichever one that you believe. It's condoned that way, to be correct and true indeed. So this is why we do what we do. We want people to be seen, heard, recognized, and appreciated. We do our thing. Now, what we're going to be talking about today,
great film.
We opened up about that. We're going to be talking about Fab Five Freddy's.
Oh yeah.
Grass is Greener. Yes. Documentary
on Netflix. Really good.
Cannabis.
Yes.
Weed. Marijuana, the negative term for it, and the cause and effect of being blown back, right? We're going to talk about that.
In the black community. And how it affects prison reform. That's right. And it's all tied in together. Great documentary.
Great documentary. It talks about
Hey,
that.
Emmett.
Hey, what's going on? Emmett Foster. He sings on the jam that we have out called 69 Funk, right? It was originally on the Sean Styles 131 Below album, but Emmett still sings. He's out there doing his thing. Make sure you let them know where you're at, Emmett. Type it in, and then we'll read it across the air, and also they'll have it there so they'll be able to see what you're saying. And the people who are commenting, I'm still populating, so I'm going to get to everyone's comment that are chiming in to watch. But yeah, Emmett, incredible singer. He's been that way since probably junior high school. But I caught on to him right after he had graduated out of high school, and his homie DJ Skills brought him to my attention because we were cutting that album from out of the 20,003 Harvard Avenue, Crazy Dee's at the time, and we put that album out. Did the commercial, was in the Source magazine, and so we do what we do, right? And so anyway, we love the people coming in and chiming in too as we talk about this. We're also talking about a beautifully created film called Bolden.
Yes.
The Bolden film is about Charles Joseph Buddy Bolden, who is credited with creating jazz.
In New Orleans, yes.
In New Orleans. So
pioneer.
We're going to be talking about that. So we've already talked about the 29 years, so you have to see that on the replay. Let's see what else. Oh, wait. You know that we have the film review, music review show. Of course, we're going to talk about the first episode, and then, the closing date for the next episode for you to be seen by filmmakers and Hollywood filmmakers also is May 15th. So we're going to talk about that, but we're going to be talking about and discussing the new single by Wolf Dotson entitled Candy Shop. It is nothing like what's going on with Joe W. Williams. I see that he wrote something. I didn't see him chime in, but he must have chimed in on the.
I see him on your phone, but I don't see it on this screen.
He must be on the. We have a watch party going too. Okay. Two different ways to see this, right? So, he's got this new single called Candy Shop, and Candy Shop is banging. But we're gonna talk about it though. I don't want to give too much away because we're gonna talk about it. But it's nothing like 50 Cent's Candy Shop. Totally different direction. The only song that was ever written that was so popular that the title cannot be used again is Tie a Yellow Ribbon Round the Old Oak Tree. That can never be used
legally,
again. Totally,
no one can use that
that's
song.
The only song that's ever been copywritten where that title also cannot be used. Like you can use another title as long as you're not infringing on somebody else, using their beat or using their orchestration or using their words. But that is the only song written in history that Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree, which is what is that? Tony and Don? What's the first guy's
Tony
name?
Orlando?
Tony Orlando and Don. That's right.
So he legally made sure he.
No. They someone, I guess the record company or whatever, made it so that song you could never make another song with that title. So that's very interesting on that, right? So, but he has the song is banging. We're gonna be talking about that. Let's see what else we're gonna be talking about. Talking about Bolden, talking about that. Then we're gonna talk about Crazy Dee's crazy work ethic as far as producing film is concerned. Listen, I was going through because I was searching some videos on YouTube to get some titles because I was doing some typing and I wanted to get some titles on my videos. And when I typed in lordlandfilms.com in the search engine, it's endless. It's endless entries of things. And I said I didn't know that I was this so prolific. Like it goes all the way back from 07 all the way up to today. I mean, it's like incredible. And when you see it, it's like, and then when you watch it, sound right, picture right. It's just something where people will live on forever after we're all gone. And new technology comes out, it will be transferred over to that new technology. So that's something, and that goes along with people being seen, heard, recognized, and appreciated, and why we do this. You know what I mean? So we're gonna start with. We were gonna start with Grass is Greener, but let me tell you something.
Bolden.
We have to start with Bolden because Bolden is such a great film. Let's run through the cast real quick.
Well, first of all, when we saw the trailer, so when you get a chance, definitely check out the trailer for Bolden. It is starring Gary Carr. Who we are familiar with him because of the show Deuces on HBO. The Deuce.
That's right. And that's Maggie Gyllenhaal, who plays she's a hooker that gets into the porn business, and somehow she's just so delightful and beautiful that everybody likes her, and then she fights to become a producer, not only just an actress, but a producer.
So in the Deuce, there's multiple storylines. So you have that Maggie Gyllenhaal storyline, and then you have the storyline with the businessman, and I cannot think of the actor's name because actually it's his baby, it's his show.
Which is that is old boy. He is the.
I expected to talk about Bolden. I expect to break it.
Right.
So now I have to look up.
Yeah, but we'll figure that out. But that is a great show, and Carr plays one of the pimps along with Method Man. Method Man is a pimp in it, and a few other choice names. Even what's his name in the first season?
James Franco. Right. But see, what grabbed our attention is well, first of all, like you said, Method Man is on the show, right? And then you said Black Thought, right? Is on the show, right? As well as so many other great black actors. It grabbed our attention when we saw the previews. We was like, look at all these black actors. We have to see it. And then so it's just so many storylines going on. The businessman, James Franco, and then you have Gary Carr. He's one of the pimps, but it's different types of pimps. It's interesting. Some of them are like really book readers, and it's not like the traditional pimp movies. It's not a stereotypical. Yeah, it's not like that. It's
they're well fleshed out characters that have a desire to push through.
Right.
And this is what you find in this film. Called Bolden.
Yeah, because when we saw the Deuce, the person that stood out on the show is Gary Carr because of his acting, and we discussed this in like previous episodes when we reviewed the Deuces.
Right.
And we said he was the breakout star. Yeah. So it's funny how and it was refreshing to see the trailer starring Gary Carr. Because his acting is superb.
Gary Carr is interesting because I was doing some research on him, and I don't know if he's ADOS or not because he was in Downtown Abbey.
Oh,
Downton Abbey.
Oh, and then you haven't seen it.
I wonder why they pronounce it Downton Abbey when it's Downtown Abbey. But he was in that, and I'm not sure, but his acting is great, and actually
he acts using his eyes.
That's right, he acts using his eyes and his facial expression. But I did some research on the film after we saw it, and come to find out, Kevin Mackey but due to scheduling and time conflicts and delays on the film being shot and all that, Kevin Mackey dropped out of the project, and they recast him.
Oh,
right. So you never know now what it would have been like with Kevin Mackey, but that's water under the bridge because this is a beautifully shot film and told film. The storytelling on it is incredible. We have to say that. And also there is one other person that was supposed to be in the film who passed, Nelson Ellis, who you know him from the vampire movie with the Fang Bangers. He was the brother.
Okay.
In the restaurant.
Okay.
I can't think of their name. On HBO with Sookie and all them, right?
Yeah.
But
True
Blood, right?
Hey Melvin.
Hey Melvin, thanks for chiming in and watching. So he was supposed to play the manager in the film, right?
Okay.
But he passed. And, you know.
Hi, Isha Goings. I hope I didn't mispronounce your name.
Listen, she works with people so that, you know, the cannabis situation can be totally explained out to the people. So stay tuned, because we're going to be talking about the Grass is Greener movie with produced by
Fab Freddy.
We're going to be talking about that. But right now we're talking about
Bolden.
About the man who was credited with creating jazz.
Yeah, the pioneer of New Orleans jazz.
Mm-hmm. Charles Joseph Bolden. Buddy Bolden. Right? Now, the film opens up, and it opens up with a photo shoot of Charles Bolden. He's being, he has his bowler hat on, and he's getting his picture taken. But then it flashes to 1931. And it's 1931, and you see it. It seems like it's some kind of asylum. Yeah, an insane asylum. And as the camera moves through the hallways, it comes across a man with his head down, which is a silhouette of him, profile. And he's sitting there, and he seems out of it, right? And so you don't see him. You don't see who it is at first. Then it cuts to a nurse who was working there, a black nurse, and she's sitting there, and she turns on a radio program, and who is on the other end of the radio other than Louis Armstrong. Yes. And he's there, and he's at the height of his situation, and then so they cut to Louis Armstrong. He's dressed to his nines, and it opens up, and the announcer for the radio station. Now there's two announcers that are like in the studio off to the side, and their announcer said it's getting ready to start. Everybody's happy. So the announcer who announces at the venue where Louis Armstrong is playing says, "I'm not going to introduce no nigger over the radio," and then he walks off. But as the door opens, Louis as he's walking out to walk out, and you see an audience out in the out there on the lawn, because there's an audience on the inside, then there's an outside audience of a majority black, and then there's some poor whites mixed in.
That was beautifully
done. The mic tilters back and forth, and then you see a black hand come in, grab the mic, and say, "Well, ladies and gentlemen."
Yes, and the crowd goes crazy.
This is Louis Armstrong, and I'm glad to be here. And I'd like to thank hello to all my people on the outside, and all the people on the inside. See, Louis Armstrong made the distinction. My people, on the outside, and all the people on the inside,
because black
who have come to see me,
weren't allowed in the club.
They weren't allowed to, but he knew where his bread and butter was, right?
So as you know, as Louis Armstrong is speaking, the prejudiced or racist announcer sees all of these people applaud. The people on the inside, the white people, the black people on the outside applauding, and he just looks like somebody stuck a balloon, pin in a balloon, deflated,
because he thought that this action throwing out the N-word was gonna make people stop, and the whole audience and everything erupted inside and out. By the time you come to the inside, the people are out their seats, which is an all-white audience standing by the bandstand, standing by the stage, waiting for Louis Armstrong to play.
So the white people gave Louis Armstrong more love than this racist guy who thought he was so important that I'm not going to introduce this nigger. Well, you know what?
He was more important. But all at the same time, we must remember that they still love segregation. And no matter how much they love black music, they still
to see this in the film, because of course this film it takes place in New Orleans, right? So all of this just beautiful jazz going on throughout this film, and these different clubs, and then you see the segregation. But it's like, okay, so you want to listen to these artists, and then they invited them in their homes. You know, they were saying, you know, they would invite them to play in their homes for different events. But I mean, it was
Okay, so let's go through some of the things before we go on telling the story.
Yeah, because this is a good film, and we had to, first of all, we had to rush out and see this film because it's in limited release.
Yeah, limited
release. An independent film.
We're going to get into
so we had to
like
hurry up and see this film before they snatch it off
Shanine
the theater.
said, "Hey."
Hey,
Jackie said hello.
Hi, Jackie.
Emmett Foster said, "What's up?"
Hey,
Emmett said, "My brother, thank you for the love." That's when we were talking earlier about where he appeared on the record.
Right.
Joe W. Williams said, "Keep uplifting one another. KingdomWood.com." He gave his website. Shameless plug. No problem about that. Franklin G said, "Good looking."
Hey, Franklin.
Must have talking about the Bolden film.
Yes, great film.
Joe W. Williams says, "Loving the energy."
Yep.
Then when we were talking about copyright infringement, he said infringement to finish the word for me. Right. Check out my new single, Emmett Foster Says, Wedding Reception, available on Tidal, Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, and any other musical digital outlets.
Yes,
See
his
more.
voice is beautiful, so check it out.
Hit me on Facebook under Emmett Foster, Twitter, and Instagram at EMDiggy213. MDiggy213, but EM. Okay, got that? And then Emmett Foster said, "Just pulled Bolden up, about to check it out." All right. So let's go on. So this is where you see, and all of a sudden when Louis Armstrong starts to play, Louis Armstrong begins to play one of Bolden's songs, and it automatically wakes the man up that you see in the insane asylum up, because it's coming through her radio is right next to a vent.
Yes.
And you know, those old style vents were open, and so it passed through the vent, so the sound passed through the vent.
Right.
Beautifully shot.
Yes.
The way that they tell this story.
Yes.
And he gets up and he starts to move around.
Yeah.
And what you find out, well, we won't say that. I'll say that closer to it as I go through, because we're only going to give you a little bit, because we want you to see the film. So he wakes up and he starts to move around, and as he moves around, there's dampness in the insane asylum, so you see water on the floor. It could be something else, but let's just say it's water. And as he's walking, you see this silhouette of a man who is older. But as you walk through the water, you see the two images, and you see him in the water as a younger man with a bowler hat on. And as he moves through, and this movie is told through flashback. It is beautifully shot. Usually they tell you the action has to happen on the screen in real time, meaning it's not going to happen in flashback. This whole film is told through flashback. It's told through images, and the dialogue is there, but it is limited. It is beautifully shot.
It is.
So as he goes on, Louis Armstrong begins to play. Now this is based on true accounts.
Yes.
Because Louis Armstrong performed, and he talks about Bolden.
Yes.
And as the songs are being played, Bolden begins to scream.
Yeah.
And the nurse comes, and then just as the nurse comes into the room, you find out that he's actually confined in a room.
Right.
And it's actually his mind, and it's a metaphor of using the corridors of the institution to represent him walking through the corridors of his mind. Beautifully shot. When I tell you beautifully shot, beautifully shot. The way that they move him through the corridors of his mind in the asylum, and then it cuts to the flashback in what would be considered his timing of the past real time. And it cuts, he'll turn and he'll cut into the scene. Beautiful transitions in this film. You know, not
new.
Using whites.
This
not,
is new.
This is a new style.
This is
like
style.
how Idlewild, different than Idlewild, but how Idlewild was new at the time. And now people are using that style. This style of Bolden, we will see this. This is where filmmaking is going. We can tell you this is where filmmaking is going. We have to tell you. So he's screaming, and then the nurse comes in, and you find out he's confined in a room with a steel door with grade, right? And Louis Armstrong says, when I was a child, I saw a man playing his cornet, and he was playing the most sorrowful of blues. And he said, why are you playing so sorrowful of blues on your cornet? And he said, they took away the king. He said, the king?
Right.
Who's the king? The king?
Right.
Well, who's the king? He said, Buddy Bolden. They took the king away. So now, the film shows you the injustice of what is the standard injustice for black people in this country.
Right.
When black people create something that has the potential to not only galvanize themselves, but also and move the people, but also bring other people around that could bring about a connection of unity that could not be stopped. There are always people who are the powers that be that want to see that particular person. It's like what J. Edgar Hoover said about the Black Messiah. This is a running theme throughout the through line of us being here in North America. Some of us already being here as the original natives, and then those who came over in the Atlantic slave trade, right? So because he's there, and something happens, and it's actually, as usual, the Irish police, the patty rollers, causing a situation because there's a man who stands up outside of the venue where Bolden is playing. He says, we are here to talk about the movement to go back to Africa. That's what he was talking about. So obviously he was somewhat probably a precursor to Garveyism, right? And so he was talking about going back because there was organizations ever since Thomas Jefferson that was trying to figure out a way to move people back, and some people fell into that, and some people did end up going back to Liberia. You have to go research that for. So this movie not only tells you about this, but it's connecting. It's connectivity. It's connecting times. It's connecting W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, Booker T. It's connecting all this. You don't see these people in the film, but you see the people who are affected by these movements, right? And so he stands there, then the cops come and they start to beat him up and beat up anybody who was standing around there. Then they blame it on him and say it's a riot.
Meanwhile, he's inside performing. He doesn't know what's going on.
But what's funny about the intercutting is that as the violence is going on outside, he then becomes sporadic on the trumpet, and it's beautiful intercutting to tell the story of his manager and himself, and the parallel. They use a lot of parallelism in this piece. Beautifully shot. So you have to see this film, Bolden, right? Now, there's quite a few scenes, right? But it explains so many things. I want to make sure that I stay on. I want to make sure I stay. I want to hit every point here.
Because we're telling you certain things,
right? But we're not going to tell you everything.
Because we don't want to spoil it for you. Because this is like one of the best films.
One of the best films. We're going to put this up as far as best film up with Yardie. For different reasons. But for some of the same reasons. Yardie. So you can go back and watch that in episode. When you see Yardie, it was produced, written by
Idris Elba.
You have to see that film too. It's probably not in theaters anymore because again, that's a limited release. But have you noticed that when films come out that tell the truth about something, it seems to be something where the people don't want you to hear the truth, because in all good films there's parallelism, not only the parallelism within the storyline, but it's parallel to what's happening in the society today. Yeah. And what you learn is that society today, the European Americans today, will often say they're sorry for something that happened 50 to 75 years ago. But the same thing is happening in contemporary time, and they're not willing to say that they're sorry or to make changes then. So it's always 50 to 100 year retardation. It's like they take a playbook, 1865. It took 100 years until 1965 for there to be a civil rights bill like it was in 1865. They would have the teeth to it, which had the military, the National Guard involved in it to enforce it. So it's always a 50 to 100 year retardation to hold people back. And the whole purpose is, like what the film illustrates, is as the one character, which is Judge Perry, played by Ian McShane, right? He also plays in American Gods. He loves
Mr.
playing.
Wednesday.
He likes playing around black characters, and he plays around. Right.
I'm gonna jump back real quick to Yardie. Idris Elba. He directed it, and he did camera work on it. It was a book based on written by Jamaican-born British writer Victor Headley. Okay. All right. So he tells Bolden, he said, why would we allow you to have something that could possibly make you as on the same level as us, right? Why would we do that? Right. So this is probably based on the research of researching and finding out what Judge Perry actually believed. You know what I mean? So you're sitting there and you're watching this, and what you find is the manager is like many people. So the parallelism between the manager and Bolden is Bolden is trying to advance his career. The manager is trying to advance, because this is the time of Jack Johnson also, right? And so he's trying to advance his career, and he has a certain type of brawling situation which you see now in WWE, right? And you see it in the cage matches that you see now. They couldn't understand it, but now they understand it, right? So he had a different type of thing, and it was mostly entertainment for black people. But then he wanted to move it, and he was going to meet with the Iron character and the guy named Rooker, which is the person who plays that character. Michael Rooker plays another character. Pat McMurphy. See, that's Irish, right? And so he goes and he meets with. So as you see, see they're telling you through images and through the story. Here's a man who is the rich one. Here's an Irish man that's trying to do what's necessary to get in where he fits in, so he can try to get there, just like the Irish did with the patty roller. Then the manager is trying to elevate his status, and when he gets there, he's doing all right. He's managing Bolden. He's getting him more shows. He's a vulture too. But his whole thing is he wants to get Bolden in front of white audiences. He thinks that once he gets him in front of white audiences, that his career will be so much better, more than being in the honky tonks or whatever. The juke joints, not honky tonks. Honky tonks are white. Juke joints. And being in the juke joints, it's better for them to be with the whites. And so you even find him taking jobs that he gets him where they're just playing ragtime, watered down milquetoast versions of the music. And of course they all want to get their hands on his music.
They want to get his hands on his music. So and they also want to get in there and kill the possible upliftment of black people through music. So when he goes there, he talks to him, and the first thing that the guy does is wants to find out if he's trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
So then they elevate his fighting, brawling people, which are all black men fighting and brawling each other, from going from all black audiences. The guy, the Patrick guy, tells him, we're gonna do this, but no niggers. And so now when they come up from out the floor to fight, you see nothing but white men in there, and they're betting and everything. So they took the betting possibilities away from black people and just put it with them so they could exchange money, right? And so once they find out that he's trustworthy like that, the next thing they do is they introduce heroin into the clubs. Before the clubs, the people were just coming there to dance.
And you see this because, again, the film is beautifully done. So you see what the lifestyle
of the
people in the community prior to the drugs.
That's right.
And then once the drugs are introduced to the community, then you visually see like the physical changes, the decline, the
layback. So they basically did it for twofold by what the story tells you. They do it, one, to take away the upward possibility of upward mobility, the agency of black people. They do that to take it away. So they have heroin. And so they introduce heroin in, and he is more than happy to do it. He gets his dealer boys to start going on. But what happens is it turns, and so he's not only a person who has brawling, but he's also a man who does he has ladies of the evening. Right? And
his wealth is shown by his attire. He's walking around in his big fur coat.
Right. He's in his hat, Godfather hat, and all that.
Right. So he's standing out from the other black men in the community.
Right. He stands out
because of his clothing and everything. So they do.
And so what happens is it messes up because one of his hookers gets Bolden hooked, and he almost dies like Jimi Hendrix. And then it goes downhill from there. So this is what you see in this film, right? And the film is just so, like I said before, beautifully shot, beautifully narrated. It tells this story. It shows you that every time people are upward mobile, they will release drugs into the community. And it's kind of like what you see now happening with the marijuana. Right? And so we want you to go see Bolden.
You know what? First of all, I have to say the music is performed and arranged by Wynton Marsalis. So the music is beautiful in the film. So what really grabbed my attention and we just like Black History Month, we heard of Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington. And speaking of Duke Ellington, he because we did research after seeing the film, watching the film, he also did a tribute to Bolden as well. He was well known and still is in the jazz community throughout the world. They did a tribute to him in Britain as well, in Ireland. So he's well known. So when we learned about him, hey, Lil Black. When we learned about he's a great poet, right? When we learned about Bolden and saw that preview, we had to go see him.
We had to go see it.
So but the thing about it, what stood out is like all of the Bolden is this great musician, right?
Great musician.
So then he's dealing with a lot. It's well written. He's dealing with his manager who supposedly, in a weird type of way, has his best interest at heart.
Looking at him
kinda
as a commodity.
Right. And then on the other hand, he's dealing with these two different racist white men who are out to destroy his life as well as his career. Right? So all of this, in the midst of this crazy storm, he has a mental illness that he's
he's dealing with.
Right? Which all of this, I mean, it's just a beautiful film, well done, and your heart really, really goes out to Bolden because it's just like so sad, you know.
Yeah, it's sad.
It's sad.
It's a sad story that seems to play over and over again. But so, like I told you, they used the drugs for twofold. First, they wanted to stop the upward mobility. And how do you stop the upward mobility? Get the female, the black female hooked on it, and then you can also use them sexually. And this is what you see in the film because the character, the Judge Perry character says, destroy the soul and you destroy the man. And he's, that's right. Now, what's funny?
Oh, hold on. I left out another thing. This is another part of the film. This is a great film. Now, in the midst of Bolden dealing with all of this treachery going on around him, and all he wants to do is play and perform his music. Again, while battling mental illness. Back then, they didn't have a definition for it. Back then, they said it was a form of dementia, but today, it's termed as schizophrenia. So he's dealing with being, because it hit him hard. So the schizophrenia. So he was slowly,
coming out of it.
He was slowly working through it. But with all of the insanity around him and dealing with the racism and dealing with his life being threatened and just dealing with just all this craziness. And then when the drugs was introduced into his system, now mind you, all these years he had been doing fine just doing this music. But when they pushed the drugs into the community through his manager, I'm telling you, this is crazy film. And once it hits,
and he's seeing
he's seeing this. And then once he takes this drug, it heightened everything. So it took him from being kind of like a depressed, bipolar type personality, but he was still functioning, right? Once this drug was introduced into his system, the schizophrenia, like it just totally kind of overtook him. So it's just like within all this craziness, there's a black musician named George Beck, right? So he trusts this black musician, Creole musician.
He's Creole,
right? So
which makes him think that he thinks
he's better than Bolden because he comes from a musical family. He plays the clarinet as well as educators in his family. So they're a class of Creole who feel that they're better than the class of people Bolden came from in his community. So Bolden thinks this guy is a friend, but meanwhile this guy is trying to steal his style, his music. Trying to get Bolden, because Bolden never wrote his music.
Yeah, he didn't.
And the guy kept pushing the issue. You don't write your stuff. So how do you remember this? How are you able to perform all of these songs? So he's looking at how huge Bolden is in his community and how well loved he is. So he's trying to figure out a way to get Bolden to get his music on record, on recording, so he can steal it.
That's right. And also he will play melodies with his clarinet.
Right.
And then he will watch Bolden's phrasing on his cornet, so he could learn how to play, because he was more classically trained, and they played a more watered down, milquetoast version of ragtime, right? And so he didn't know how to actually play it, but as he watched, and it's beautifully shot, the way they used his eyes,
you can tell
how the treachery
they zoomed
there,
in on his eyes,
and you see him watching him, and he's trying to figure out his phrasing so he can learn the phrasings, and he figured, if I can write it and know the phrasings, I can just emulate it, because I'm not the originator of it, but I'll steal it. And so
which is so sad, because Bolden let his guards down for this man. He's like another black jazz musician, you know,
another person who had a style, because he did have a nice flavor with the clarinet once when he was doing it, but he was really emulating, because he didn't know it, but he just felt that he could do it better once he wrote it down. Now, it's funny about Duke Ellington is that Duke Ellington and Buddy Bolden, as well as Louis Armstrong, would have been contemporaries, right? Because Buddy Bolden died at 54,
right,
on November 4th, November 4th, 1931. What's going on, Quentin? Thanks for chiming in. He died November 4th, 1931, a couple of weeks after hearing the Louis Armstrong presentation, right? So this is all documented. So this is based on true events, right? So if he was not locked in the insane asylum, these three men would have been contemporaries,
right?
You know, and just think of the music that was missed because he wasn't there, but people took his inspiration and kept going with it.
And then this film, when you go see this film, because we're not going to tell you, but the treachery, and you see why they put this man at the young age of 30 in a freaking insane asylum.
What's going on to Artist D? I see he checked in.
Hey, Artist. It's crazy.
Duke Ellington and Bubba Miley produced a song in 1927 called Black and Tan Fantasy. If you have never heard Black and Tan Fantasy, Duke Ellington back in 1927 was telling us that we were black and that we were tan. So in other words, he was saying the black beautiful sister and then the red bone, yellow bone, or the mulatto fair-skinned black woman is tan. So Black and Tan Fantasy, and when you listen to the phrasings of the record and what they're saying to you through the music is how beautiful the black woman is. He was telling you that you were black back in 1927.
Right.
You just weren't listening. That you were tan.
Right.
White folks, European Americans don't tan.
Yeah, they took over the terminology. They like to say tan.
They don't tan, they burn. Okay, so let's be truthful. That is burning. That is not tanning. That's burning. We are black and tan, right? The black woman, Black and Tan Fantasy. And when you listen to this, and then they made a movie a couple of years later in 1929 called Black and Tan Fantasy about Duke Ellington and his wife on screen. Miss Washington, I forget her first name, but they're talking and she has a terminal illness and she ends up falling out as they get their big break, and then that's where you hear why you hear the death march at the beginning and the end of the song. That's what that means. It's about loss of possibilities, right? And then in 2015 the film was preserved by the Library of Congress. So you see, when you get, so here's a man who was born in D.C., which is Duke Ellington, on April 29th, 1899. Right?
Taurus the Bull.
Right? He's born then.
Right.
And he's able to push through and come into talkies in 29, already, you know, composing music that stands the test of time, right? He's only 22 years different than Bolden. Bolden was born in 1877, so they would have been contemporaries.
Right.
And then Louis Armstrong was born in 1901, and you know that Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington are contemporaries. They even have an album together. Right? Yep. What's going on, Edward? Thanks for chiming in.
Hey, Edward.
You know, so they're contemporaries. So these people would have been contemporaries at the time. Now, it's funny about Duke Ellington because my wife took a
what is it? Jazz
appreciation class to go along with her degree. Right?
Years ago,
right? And so, you know, here I am, a person in music that knows about measures and bars. And so they had something where you had to take a jazz record. Right. Was it of your choice, or
of course I chose black jazz musicians. And I chose the Duke Ellington.
To A-Train.
Right.
So A-Train is a complicated structured song because right in the middle of the song, Duke Ellington starts the song with the first original 8 bars, right? So, but if you're not listening to it, you think that it's just the regular count and it's going, right? So it starts out right. So, but then in the middle of it, it comes back again before he takes you. It's like taking you on a journey. Like here's the first stop. Right. You start at a stop and then you move in, but here's the train starting at another stop before it goes on to its main destination, and he takes it and progresses the song within within the natural progressions of the song, right? So I laid it out for because you would have to stand up in the class as the song played and laid out the bar counts, right? The measures and the bar counts. Right. So my wife did it, right? And so the teacher went back and played the song, and right next to hers did it again. He had never heard the 8 bar. I'm gonna call it retread, but it's a reformulation before he goes on and takes the train on its own destination. Beautiful. If you know measures and bar counting of music. Matter of fact, I taught all of my rappers bar counts, how to count bars, how to count 8 intro. Now it's 12 bars. Used to be 16. Used to be 8, 16, 8, 16, 8. You know, but now it breaks down different. Sometimes it's even just 4 for the opening, 12 bars, 4 or 8, then 12, and then that's the end of the song with the closing, right? So it's more like 2 minutes and some seconds. Whereas hip hop used to be 4 minutes and some seconds, 3 verses of 16, and then 8 bar counts, three counts of 8 bars for the hook, right? For the opening hook. And sometimes you would have closing music if you were going to expand, but usually 4 minutes and some seconds, right? So he got up there and he redid it, and he looked at her and said,
"You're right,"
and said, "Very good." And you know, and what did you get? He didn't realize that because he hadn't counted it. Right. You see what I'm saying? Right. And didn't realize that there was a recalculation that Duke Ellington did, which was showing you the travel of the train. Beautiful. If you have never listened to A Train, if you have never listened to Black and Tan Fantasy, you have to listen to that, because in the music you hear it. You hear the beauty of the black woman in Black and Tan Fantasy. You hear it. You hear where he's going with it, and you will enjoy it. That's what I love about that music, and it is timeless, and it is a through line like Oscar Michaud. It's a through line like the artistic piece that is Bolden. It's a through line. And what did you get in that class? Oh, right, and then that was the closing. That was the closing thesis. So
and then I had also did was something else. I did Bessie Smith. Like I covered like a lot of people. I mean, I was the only black person in the class, so I was gonna represent my people. Represent the people. So the teacher, he really enjoyed when I did the Duke Ellington one, because I guess he hadn't heard, because everybody was just, of course, focusing on their culture.
Kenny G.
You know, they were focusing on their culture. So he was excited when I covered, black musicians. But anyway, so with this Bolden, so when we saw the trailer, I'm like, okay, we have to go see this. And like I said, you definitely have to go see this film. That's why we had to jump out and see it, because it's limited release.
We're trying to throw in a lot of...
it will not be in the theaters.
Yeah, it won't be in the theaters because it's telling too much truth. And it's too much parallelism. Not only the parallelism in the film, but the parallelism to today. And it sets you up to let you know. Now, in the film, there's certain gems in the film that you cannot overlook. Like, while black people created Memorial Day, yes, they did.
Yes, that's in the film.
That's in the film.
Yes.
And we created Memorial Day for the black soldiers who died in the Civil War. That's what it was made for, people. We made that, right? It was co-opted because at the same time, the racists, the eugenicists, the white supremacists created a holiday that ran parallel, right? And so as people forget they were able to co-opt it and turn it into Memorial Day. And you know what they do? They only see, and when you watch TV, you only see the white soldiers. This is not by happenstance. This is by planning. They say, okay, we called it Memorial Day. They were calling there something else, Confederate Day, Confederate March Day, whatever. And they took Memorial Day away from us and put it. So that's why we have barbecues. They have picnics. And they took it away in Memorial Day. So when you watch TV, you don't see any black soldiers being interviewed for the most part. Right? And we forget that it was ours. We created that, right? So that's one thing. I want to also say that Bolden was happening between 1900 and 1907. Louis Armstrong was born in 1901. You see how people pass through? Have you ever looked at like a graph of all the presidents of the United States, and you will see that they overlap, that they live in the same time period? So that's why this sickness can keep going. And the reason why we need to know our history better is our important people overlap even more than theirs. And it pushes a through line that we can use to overcome, but it's always been broken up, like taking different things away so you don't know what's going on. Now the last part before we do the rating about Bolden is the artistic nature of the film. The beauty that they show of the black woman in this film. Beautifully done. There's a birth sequence in this film. This intercut, this intercutting within chaos, right? Which shows you the chaos of what it is to be black, a black body in this American society. Then and still even now. She gave birth alone, but she gave birth to the child. Played by actress Yaya DaCosta. That's right. So I'm going to put it up with the artistic aspects of it. It kind of reminds you of Beloved, right? I would say even musicality, School Days. I'll give it, because Spike Lee made a musical with School Days. If you haven't watched School Days, I don't know what's going on. More Better Blues, too. More Better Blues. That's great. Color Purple. It is definitely in an element like Color Purple comes later. It comes in the 30s, maybe 40s. But there's a through line that happens in between the 1901 up through the 40s, and then the 50s kind of changes it as black music starts to take over, and then they come in with rock and roll to take a term that was used in rhythm and blues, Louis Jordan, rock and roll, and take it to try to go on. Then the British invasion came with Motown. So it's a through line. Motown was coming. It was getting ready to break what was called the quote-unquote color line. Then the British invasion came, and they said, let's bring the Beatles in. And then the rest is history. And then wait a minute. And remember, with the Beatles came the psychedelic drugs. See the through line? And so before we saw this movie, of course they're showing previews. So they're getting ready to push this other lie, or this other narrative. I can't even think of the name of this stupid documentary, but I can't even remember the name of the group. It's a well-known group, rock and roll band. What's going on to Frank White chiming in? Thanks for chiming in. White. So it's rock, and then so this is what they say in the previews, in the trailer before the film Bolden starts. In rock and roll, half of rock and roll was created by white people, and the other half of rock and roll was created by black people. I'm like, so they're getting ready to try to change the narrative and say that white people created rock and roll, huh? Because this is where we going with this, right? Just like they said that white people created jazz. Right, they're trying to say that, rewrite history. When actually they were playing which was worse than the ragtime that actually Scott Joplin created ragtime. Right. So they were taking that from him and trying to roll with it, but it was so milquetoast and so dry. And even there's imagery when he's playing that music just to make a buck that his manager got for him, that the room is lily white. the dresses are lily white, and the women that are sitting there drinking their tea and eating their whatever they're eating, pastries or whatever, they're so dumpy and frumpy.
So the way they did that, the lighting, the way they introduced it
was so
amazing.
milk toast and so dry. But then when you get to the instances where the black people are together and they're dancing in the juke joint, you see it's like Mark Baptiste, Beautiful Nudes. If you have never seen the book, it's a coffee table book called Mark Baptiste, Beautiful Nudes.
Great
it's all black women in there, and the imagery when he finds out that his wife is pregnant, they also let you know that he was getting women pregnant all around the town, right? And this is another reason why the Judge Perry, though he's getting black women hooked on heroin to use them sexually, he says, why should we let you be up? You're so immoral. But really, you're immoral because you're putting it in there to make the women loose, right? You're actually immoral. And so he's going through this, and this is what they're showing you in this film, right? And they use these elements of the women and what I told you before, Beloved and the Mark Baptiste, Beautiful Nudes. The way that they shoot it is low key, artistic, beautiful work, kind of like the work I was doing with the original Black Ice stuff. You know, the artistic nudes that I was shooting, model stretch techniques. Yep. So this film is so great. It's like hard to stop talking about it, and then to learn about this jazz musician and his life, and it's a great film. So see it. A lot of the times too, just so you know, like a lot of the stuff that's a limited release, they also will release sometimes on Amazon Prime or Netflix,
and then with Fire Stick. So try to search this film out to see if it's locally where you can go see it in the theater, or if you can see it.
I have to give props to Reno Wilson, who played Louis Armstrong.
Excellent acting. I was convinced his voice. I was convinced
it was him. You know, he didn't totally look like Louis Armstrong, but he embodied Louis Armstrong.
Yeah, he did.
And it was just, it's just beautifully done. Beautiful choice in actor to play that role. And it was just the dignity that he showed that Louis Armstrong always possessed throughout his whole time there. He was authentically who he was. He didn't try to prop her up, but within who he was, it was the dignity that he displayed. Beautifully done and
humble, like the one scene, just tying. It's just so much in the film, so it's so much that we're not telling.
So much history in the film.
So the one scene, so you talked about the racist Judge Perry, right? The dirty guy. So before he puts Bolden basically away for life, in this insane asylum, and when he said to him, he said he would make sure that he would basically wipe him from history. No one will know about him, his music, or won't even know his name. I mean, this man is treacherous. So he says to him, at the time, like I said, Bolden was 30, right? When they put him in an insane asylum. So that was years ago. And then you fast forward, right? Louis Armstrong performing and giving props to Bolden
over the radio,
right? Meanwhile, Bolden hears this years later. He's all great up. How old do you think he was then?
He's 50, because he was actually,
oh my gosh, 50, they had him looking way older.
50. Well, he had been in the insane asylum.
Right.
54.
So imagine. So you fast forward all these years. He's in an asylum. Of course he's thinking that no one remembers him. He's forgotten by the entire world. He's shut off from everything and everybody. And then all of a sudden, late at night, through the vents, he hears this jazz, something that he was a pioneer of. And then he hears Louis Armstrong says his name, and then that's when he starts screaming, but not in a bad way, like in a to be acknowledged, just to be recognized.
And then they said 2 weeks later after that broadcast,
he passed away, right? So, I mean, it was just so beautifully done and just so sad. And it was just good that he was able to hear that, hey, you know what? People remember you. You are loved and respected by the jazz artists out there. And what this judge did, was wrong. And he could not erase you from history the way he said that he was going to do. And when he heard his name, and he was just so happy and just screaming. And that's when the nurse, the older black nurse, started running down the corridors to check because she heard his screaming. But then when Louis Armstrong, beautifully done, when he gives Bolden a shout out, right, when he says his name, and then the nurse, she runs and checks on him, and she hears Bolden's name, and she's looking at Bolden, and she's hearing the shout out from Louis Armstrong, and she's looking like, this is the guy that Armstrong is just talking about. I mean, this movie is beautifully done. I mean, it's a tragic story. It's sad, and it's like it goes well done.
It just goes back like what we said before about how things have to be corrected, and the reason why there's always a 50 to 75 year to 100 year retardation of black people's development to be placed in their rightful place as people who were some that were already here when the Spaniards and the other people came, but also the people who were brought over, right? What keeps it is, as what the story tells you, is always some people who think that being over there with the European Americans will somehow elevate you, and what always continues to happen. We can go through today. We can look at the people today. We can look at people like 21 Savage, right? We can look at anyone who doesn't take their stand and say, we're in charge. When you see Jay-Z and Beyonce say we're in charge, it's because they understand. They overstand the history.
And P. Diddy.
P. Diddy, he overstands. That's why they're so harsh and they get it done.
50 Cent.
They have no time for people say, if I get under them and they can just get me to where I'm going. No, I'm going to get myself where I'm going. Anyone who falls under that and has their hands out thinking that somebody can be their benefactor. Benefactor usually means that that person is getting some kind of sexual favor from you. That's a benefactor. A person who is backing you, they're going to want something in return. And if you're not able to stand on your own without need of somebody backing you, then you're going to, when they pull away from you, or when they put you in an insane asylum, or when they steal from you what was yours, when they hold a cylinder like what the judge did in this movie and say, they will never hear this. They will never know that you exist. As long as there are certain groups, certain people within black people who choose to think that somehow the grass is greener, the money is greener, the ice is greener, the water is colder. Over there, water too. You know what I mean? Water and ice. Yeah. So, as long as they think that it's colder over there and don't see the beauty, the importance of working together to get something done, this will continue to be a perpetuation where people later will be able to correct the wrong, but it's way past where the person's going. We need wrongs corrected now.
Now, like the thing with for instance, as far as like making sure that people don't try to take your legacy, and the whole thing with 50 Cent and the Twitter thing about that guy, last week or this past week, was one of the producers or something. The white guy was one of the producers of Power, and that's why 50 was going at him over social media because he owed 50 Cent $1 million. And 50 went at him. Know? And that's the thing. You know how we say, okay, black people are I'm saying a diaspora of black people, whether you from you're African or American or British or Jamaican, just black people as a whole. I'm saying sometimes some black people are quick to attack another black person, but then they won't go head to head with a white person. A European American. But 50 Cent, because you know how 50 Cent will go in on a person. Right. But 50 Cent went in on this white man just like he do everybody else. And, equal opportunity. But the thing is the guy, he did pay 50 Cent that $1 million. He paid. He paid.
You understand?
Right.
Because it's about getting
right.
what is yours.
What is yours and what you worked for. And the way this guy tried to steal from 50 is what they did to Bolden. Right? And then so fast forward or go backwards, the Billboard Awards. Okay, so we see Beyonce, you know, performing
last year.
Last year she did the Coachella, and they released it on Netflix, The Homecoming, and we saw her performance. We saw the black bands. Okay, so Taylor Swift last week, the Billboard Awards, she comes out in the same stance as Beyonce, the hand on the hip, the little short outfit with the glitter, and then she has the marching bands. So the same setup as Beyonce, basically, right? So thank God social media, you know, went after and brought it to everyone's attention. But they're just so used to just stealing every damn thing. Like, we can all work together and get along, but why does it have to be such treachery all the time?
And see what it is it's bad because we know some people whose children were actually in that drum line for her, black children, right?
For Taylor Swift.
And for Taylor Swift. And it's bad because you, as a person, you don't want to turn down an opportunity, but then you have to you have to be more aware as a person and look and say that this is maybe a use situation. And once you're used, you will be just totally discarded and not needed because that was just for this moment to make this moment in time for this particular Caucasian European American artist, and that's just the way that is.
I mean,
so you have to think it out and say, well, I know that Beyonce did this, and so I can't really do this. I have to stand on principle, and my time I cannot be. That's what the manager character told you. I'm trying to look at the manager's name.
The
manager character in the movie showed you that you do not. You shouldn't be that desperate because what is going to come will come to you for hard work. You're gonna have to work 100 times harder.
The manager's character, well, his name was Bartley, played by Eric LaRae Harvey, and Eric LaRae Harvey killed it because he made me not like his character in this film. He really acted it out well.
But see, you have to work hard for yourself. Let me take that back. We're not going to say you have to work 100 times or that old 10 times harder, because who are European Americans or Europeans to work hard to try to get to their level for when we're already the level? We're the ones, like, they took Farrakhan off of Facebook and Instagram, and they're probably going to cut the feed on this, people, because they cut the feed when they don't want you to hear certain things. But listen, they cut Farrakhan off of Instagram and Facebook, and I believe that they have made a fatal mistake as far as their platform.
Farrakhan, who was also born in May, he's a tourist.
That's right. And so, which is that August Ogun spirit, right? So look, they've made a mistake with that because people who are still on are still posting and making Farrakhan more famous. Number two is we are the ones who, Facebook and Instagram, they sell advertising. Well, let's go Facebook. Facebook sells advertisement off of you being the entertainment, people. If black people wholesale moved over to a whole nother platform, Facebook would be done, because the milquetoast European Americans, what they write is too extreme. It's not entertaining. It's like seeing them in blackface. It's just a fake. You know what I mean? So if we wholesale just picked up off of Facebook and walked away, they would lose stock shares. They would be kicked out of the stock altogether, because we are the entertainment. We are the entertainment, the people who do the different podcasting. And that's why I said it's so important to actually talk and say something about this, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And in the end, when it's time for you to take your last breath, you say, did I stand for something, or did I just go for anything and they use me up? All right, what's going on, Shamika? Well, let's see. So look, in the end, you have to stand and speak for something. And this is what this movie shows. The manager was too wanting to do it. The whole situation with Taylor Swift, and we knew some people whose children were in that drum line with Taylor Swift. You got to say, you know what, this is a huge situation, and no matter how I think this is going to advance my career, it can't advance my career because they're using me for a purpose to go at one of my own. And so at the end of the movie, the manager, for the first time, looks at Judge Perry's stained glass window, and he notices
he's a Confederate.
That he's a Confederate, and he's a Confederate soldier. So not only did he have the Confederate there, but he had the
who pushed drugs in the black community,
pushed heroin in the black community to take away the upward mobility away and the agency away from black people during that time. Right. And this is what they're doing, and every time there's a chance or opportunity for black people to raise up, they release a drug. Right. Okay?
He's supposed to be a freaking judge.
This is just a continuous situation. And did you notice they talked about the lounges? For people who don't know, in Las Vegas they're releasing they're opening up cannabis lounges where you can go sit down and smoke weed, kind of like the opium dens in China that the Europeans were running to keep the Chinese dormant so they could come in and take their land. Okay, another story for another time. But parallelism, the parallels, uncanny. But this is my point on this. Any other time when it has to do with a business, the news will show you a white face. But for these cannabis lounges, they found one of the only black-owned dispensaries that they say, quote unquote, was prepared for this, and had the lounge seats already set up, prepared for this. They show you this so they can put a black face on what will possibly happen with the cannabis lounges, where people lose their agency. So they put a black face on it so that when they can go back, they can go blame a black face, when you know that the white faces are the ones that are making the majority of money on it. So people, that's what we want to see. So you have to see this movie, Bolden.
Excellent.
Beautifully shot. Everything that we told you about it is why it's quality and why you should go see it. We took extra time on it because there's so much history in it, and we had to break it down so when you see it, you can go back and why do they have a Memorial Day parade? Because we created Memorial Day, not them. Okay.
And then Wynton Marsalis.
Wynton Marsalis
did an excellent.
The one thing I'll say about Louis Armstrong is the trumpet was not loud enough. Because Louis Armstrong's trumpet was so loud and so forceful, and he was blowing everything in it, the black experience that he had experienced out, that they would have to put him out of the studio into the hallway. They would open up the door to the studio, and he would stand out in the hallway so they could record his horn. His horn was so loud and so powerful that being in the studio by the mic, it would blow everything out. So they had to find a way to put him out further to get it right. And so that's the only thing I said about the trumpet wasn't recorded loud enough. Because even when you listen to Louis Armstrong recordings, the power in which, listen to Stardust. Stardust is in this film written by Hoagie Carmichael, which is one of the European Americans who was able to get into the black community and live within it. Kind of like what we're going to talk about as far as the weed movie that we're going to talk about with Fab Five Freddy. But it's written by him, and so glad that, you know, it was put in the film as if he had wrote it, because it's just like how they do so many films and they use black created films and they have them replay it as if they created it. So it's a good tip for tat on that. Now, what would you rate the film?
10.
Right.
Yeah.
So
definitely a 10.
The artistic expression, 10.
Yes.
The cinematography 10.
Yep.
The low key,
right,
10. The use of flashback instead of real time to tell the story.
Right.
New way of telling stories, yes. 10. The more the way that they created the film and used more images, right, than dialogue to tell the film. The dialogue, right, is there,
right, but the
imagery,
right,
the images, 10. The clothing of the period
was
10.
Realistic. You felt like you were back during that period. And the hair and makeup too. The use of intercutting in the edit to show you the conflict. Yes. And without using the standard wipes, right, being able to use the cuts to tell the story as he transitions from the cabins in his mind in the institution. Again, using the institution as a metaphor of the cabins of his mind turning into the flashbacks. 10. The editor did an amazing job. He was a beast. I have to give the director his credit too. The director, the editor, ADOS and all that, but it's beautifully done. He tells beautifully the story. Done. You get people sometimes that break the white code and want to tell the truth about what's going on. Okay, and so 10. The movie all together, all over 10. Now, we're moving now. Boy, we stayed on that. That's about an hour. But we stayed on that, I believe. But Gary Carr, he kills it. Gary Carr, he kills it. Great acting on that. Now, look. You know, we have the music review by the film review. Right. And, you know, we just had our first episode show. It came out on April 30th. You can see it globally, right? You go to Vimeo or YouTube on your smart TV or Roku device. Right. You type in the YouTube app or the Vimeo app, you're able to then type in the film review, music review, volume 1, and it comes up and you're able to watch it in New York, in California, in Vegas, in Cleveland, in Mississippi, right, but all in Africa, right, in cities, in states, cities, and towns in Africa, in Jamaica, or Europe. You can watch it. And from my analytics, I see that people are watching it in Africa, in Europe, in the United States, Canada, South America, Mexico. Not so much Mexico, but South America. Because we have, I mean, it's a lot of great artists, like musicians, like No Face Shadow Man. Yes. No Face Shadow Man. Plus, you know, on the show we have African musicians. That's all right. We had the African come through, send his music through. He has a great song. Yeah, he does. We got Dame Diz or Dame Israel with Jungle 2. Right. We J Jig, Cicero, all that, right? So we have these acts, and you can see this global, and you can also listen to it in your car globally by going over to SoundCloud with your iPhone or with your Android. Connect your Android or iPhone to your Bluetooth. You can bam it through your speakers. It bams. Or if you still got a car that has a wire, where you take the 3/5 and you stick it in the 1/4 inch, and you stick, not 1/4 inch, 3/5, and you stick it into the back of the phone, and you stick it into your dash. You can go to auxiliary and you can listen to it there, bam, through the speakers. And it's a mixtape. You know, Crazy Dee, I've been known to make the best mixtapes. And you know, not only is it visual,
but it's also audio, so you can hear it and take it everywhere. The artists are seen, heard, recognized, appreciated. Like we told you before, that's what we're about. Now, on there we have an artist also named Wolf Dotson.
Yes,
right?
Excellent.
Wolf Dotson has a song on there called I Know.
Oh, yeah.
They don't want to see me shine.
Yeah.
I know, I know. What's so incredible about Wolf Dotson is he has enough videos. He already has content for multiple albums. I'm talking about audio. Right. But what's going on, Michael Black?
Hey, Michael.
Thanks for chiming in. Wolf Dotson has enough videos to turn into a visual album. Right? He has enough videos and he's cranking out stuff, but everything he cranks out are hits. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. What he cranks out are hits. Yeah. It's just an incredible thing. So when you type in Wolf Dotson and you watch it, but go watch it.
Because he performed, right?
That's right. He performed at the event that I structured over at TC's Rib Crib. TC's Barbecue Crib. Yeah. We were over there and I programmed an event and we had 4 acts perform. Yeah. And he came out and performed.
And his family came out and supported him. And
his family came out and supported him. Yeah. And his music. So I know when you first listen to it, it is hip hop on Facebook. But you have to go see the review. I'm not going to rehash that. Go watch it. But on the show, we review 3 artists, and then we show you the banging videos, jamming
Icy
videos
Jones,
of different people. Icy Jones, Is a Twin. We do all that, right? And then we review 3 acts because we know we keep it moving and keep it fresh. Right. You know what I'm saying? I am known to make great mixtapes over the years because I started out as a DJ and because
mix CDs.
That's awesome. Right, mix CDs, and I know sound and sound reinforcement because I was a studio dude. Right, and put out records myself, so I know, and I had success, so I don't have hatred, so I can hear jamming stuff. And then we have Fever Wine by Rhyme Schemes, right? That's on there. But about Wolf Dotson. Wolf Dotson, like I said, he has enough to make a video album, and he's constantly pumping out hits. He's got enough to make 3-4 albums in audio form, right? But the man has a new single out called Candy Shop. Now, Candy Shop is not like 50 Cent's Candy Shop. And like I said, the only song in history, the only song in history that can never be used as a title, is Tie a Yellow Ribbon Round the Old Oak Tree. That's the only one because it was just so popular by Tony Orlando and Don, right? And you can see one of Don on that show. What was that? Half and Half?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she's still acting and
doing her thing. And she played on with Give Me a Break.
Yeah. So, you can see her.
Yeah.
A lot of acting. She went from singing to acting. Yeah. It's great stuff. Shanine said, like Chadwick Boseman and when he played James Brown about the dignity.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
Gonna see this movie, she said.
Yes, go see it. And that's another one who we love too. Chadwick Boseman. Yeah. Like he's like a dignified person, like in real life too. Like he chooses characters who have dignity, and in real life he's a very, very, very he loves his culture and he stands for his people, and that's what I like and respect about him, not only as an actor but as a human being. He's just a great person. That's somebody that you support.
Thelma Hopkins, right? That's her name.
Oh,
Shanine is telling us what her name is. That's right. And then Shanine said, true about the mixtapes. Yes! See, co-signing. That's right. That's right. So, Candy Shop is out, and it's incredible. You will hear it on Volume 2 of the Film Review Music Review Show. But you can go there and blow his numbers up on YouTube. You go to the search, and you type in Candy Shop, type in Wolf Dotson, listen to the track. It's Hip Hop Bona Fides. If you don't know what Hip Hop Bona Fides is, Go watch the film review, music review show. I talk about what hip hop bona fides is, the 3 topics and the 3 subtopics that are usually in hip hop that make it hip hop bona fides, and he captures that in what he does. So go see Candy Shop, and then definitely watch the film review, music review show, volume 1. You can see it globally on your TV set. You can see it on your computer. You can go to lordlandfilms.com and tap the film review in the Navi bar, and it comes right up. I got it debuted real big where you can watch it. You see the track listing. It's all good. And then you can also you can see it everywhere. You can see it on MySpace. Remember we talked about MySpace? You can see it on MySpace. MySpace's platform now is really good for music. I can just tell you, it's really good. People forgot about it, but it's really good for music. You can just see the film review, music review show globally. Like I said, you go to YouTube app on your smart TV or your Roku TV, and you can download it, right? And then you can search the film review, music review show on the YouTube app. On the Vimeo app, same thing. You download it, but you search Lordland Films, and all of the films come up. The stuff that's for pay, which is many of my films, and then you have the complimentary, and within that, there it is, and you can watch it right there at your leisure. And you can also, people, see, I do research. I'm the person. I work hard.
Hey, Otis.
All right, hey, what's going on, Otis Lang? Otis Lang is DJ LV from in Las Vegas doing this thing. Put your information in on the what is this called? I forget what it's called on Facebook. The watch party, and then I'll be able to read it over air. But that is who that is. Oh, DJ Mixmaster LV. I just had to do total recall there. He DJs most of Brother Stretch Sanders, Minister Stretch Sanders events that help to advance the historic West. Right? So make sure that when you get a chance, Otis, that you go back and watch this, because we kicked some gems about the movie Bolden, where they talk about people who are there to advance the agency of black people and how they try to derail them. So we dropped some gems in there because that's what the movie's about. Get a chance, take Stretch, take all the people, get a group of people, and go see Bolden, the movie, right? So back to we already talked about
the grass is greener.
We already talked about Wolf Dotson. Wolf Dotson, I know we already told you'll see it, but that's a 10. And this Candy Shop is just banging.
It is.
I mean, it's just banging, and it bangs, and you will see it. But like I said, go to YouTube, do that. Now, one more thing about seeing the film review, music review show. You can also, people, see, I'm a researcher. I research. I'm not just playing around with it. I research to make sure the picture is right. I research to make sure that the sound is right. I am not a videographer. I am a filmmaker. Okay? So I research this to make sure that it is right, so that my people can be seen, heard, recognized, and appreciated. Because if it's dusty and it's not right, people are not going to watch it years later. We're sorry. So people who are producing dust, that's cool, but they're just reality, just speaking reality, the pictures got to be there. So like I said, you can also go to YouTube and search lordlandfilms.com and look at all the work. We talked about that before. It's just prolific. One of the most prolific filmmakers in the game, Crazy Dee.
And Laurels.
That's right, and Laurels. Most prolific filmmaker in the game, with top quality, top picture, top sound, everything. You just go through from 07 all the way up to today. I mean, I didn't know I was that prolific, just searching for stuff. But anyway, last thing, I'm a researcher, so you can take your ISO, your Apple or your Android, and you can go onto your smart TV. You can download the Firefox app, link your phone to the Wi-Fi that's connecting the smart TV to your phone, and you can watch us right there on your TV globally. You can watch YouTube. You can watch the film review and the film review music review globally right there using your cell phone. We're into technology, people. We make it happen. We make it move. But what you find is if you're producing dust, people ain't going to watch that long. They're going to be like, ah, man, turn that off. Turn that off. I need to swing over. Right.
Speaking of technology, out here, and I'm sure all over the United States, there are like coding camps for children. So make sure that you are pushing your like children, nieces, nephews, cousins, neighbors, best friends, god kids towards coding, because technology is right now is the future, and our children definitely need to be a part of creating these systems.
All right, so check that out. So we're gonna get to the grass is greener, but since we're on this, we might as well stay on this. The Crazy Dee's work ethic in filmmaking. Listen, YouTube search. Now I've said this is the third time, and we're gonna move off of it. But YouTube search LordlandFilms.com and look at the list. I did not know this, but just looking at it, because I was searching for some things, some titles, because I was doing a quick review, and I was looking for some titles, and I just typed in LordlandFilms.com. I have all kinds of genres. I have films. I have documentaries. I have interviews, classic interviews with various people, all there. Crystal clear sound, picture, streamed situations that turned into finished products. It is there. See, the sheer amount of finished film presentations, I doubt, other than, I don't even think people in Hollywood have this much. It's really incredible, right? Beautiful picture and top quality sound. We as a team are about getting people seen, heard, recognized, and appreciated. If you're jamming, I'm with it. You know what I mean? Ain't no hesitation, ain't no hate, ain't no my boy do it around the corner. Bull BS. What sets me and us apart is that we are for our people to be seen, heard, recognized, and people. Never do I come with my hand out. Can you give me something? No, I don't do that, because we landed here. I landed here being Crazy Dee. I landed here already having laurels behind my films, already having films, already doing that. When I come, I bring good product or service that when shown is entertaining and edutaining at the same time. When people pay for ads for our shows, it is not that you're doing something. This is through the board for everyone who is out there producing. When a business or a product or a service pays for advertisement on these platforms that we do, they're not doing something for us. We have set a price, have set a price point to say that this is what our service will cost to open you up to a whole new group of people that you don't have, right? When you go and you pay your money to the European Americans, to their platforms, you don't say, I'm helping the European American. So don't think.
So you mean the ones with inferior work?
No, I'm talking about the ones who have shows where they will pay for advertisers to be on those shows.
Okay, no, I was talking about people who will, they'll have let's say they may have a bad experience if they deal with a black contractor or go into a black-owned business, and if something doesn't go, if they don't like how they were served or whatever, I'll never go back to a black business again. But then if you have an issue when you go in DIY, right, McDonald's or one of the other white-owned businesses, then then they have a bad taste in their mouth. But then they'll go into that establishment again, a day or two later again.
Or if someone does something, a contractor does something wrong,
right?
Lays cement wrong, or lays right.
They'll just call up another white contractor,
or they just call up another one.
But a black person do something.
They do it once, and they say,
I'm never dealing with black
people. Oh my God! Well,
that's
know what?
Self-hate.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's self-hate, and I just learned about that.
Or not hiring a black person who has quality work. Mm-hmm. But then you'll hire a white person whose work is inferior.
That's right.
And the
who can't sync up dancing. That is my pet peeve in videos. Lip sync,
right?
And movement dancing. And the dancing. If you can't sing, if you can't sync up lips and you can't sync up the dancing, you don't have any rhythm. And why would you not go to someone that sits there painstakingly to make sure that your product comes out great, where it is synced, synced? So, that's what it is. Speaking of businesses and contracting businesses, I just heard about something that happened back in Cleveland with Sam Silk. He's a radio personality, but he's opened up a lot of fish business, fish restaurant chains around the city. Looking back and trying that out, right? Sam Silk, I forget, Catfish or whatever the name is, but Sam Silk, and
I think it's chicken and seafood.
It's chicken and seafood, and something happened, and then the person decides to try to put it up on the internet with picture form to try to basically derail the business. And what was found out from what I heard was that person has a business that kind of does the same thing. So why would you want to
tear down another
person? Because what you do, so that's what I'm saying. But you wouldn't go into the European American establishment and do anything like that. Right. You would say, oh, you probably toss it to the side. You see a hair in the food, you move it to the side and keep on eating. You know what I mean? And so these type of things have to cease, because we have to tell it like it is. Mm-hmm. I have a concept that I just came up with, and it has to do with Pan-Africanism versus Rastafarianism. Rastafari versus Pan-Africanism, okay? Taking ADOS out of it. American descendants of slaves, and looking for the reparations that belong to us and not to the invasion of the body snatchers that have been coming over here lately, trying to take our position. And we've talked about that extensively. Go back and watch some of the other episodes. It's all listed in the descriptions, and you can watch that. So we're not going to beat that dead horse. So we're going to move ADOS to the side, right? We're not going to kill that lively horse like the stallion with the irresponsible Mexican holding the reins, and he got his brain kicked out by Facebook. It was on Facebook, and then the horse was up and ready to do something. But anyway, we're not going to kill a horse. So we're going to move the ADOS to the side from it and deal with just a concept. This came to me in an epiphany on Thursday, and after Like It Is podcast that comes on 10 to 11 on Crazy Dee, and also other channels on Facebook, other pages on Facebook, excuse me. We were sitting,
Like It Is page.
Like It Is page. Yeah. Franklin G. Hoes. We were having lunch over at the Bistro, and it was myself and B. Timms, formerly of the Bomb Squad, but he's the engineer over at the Black Run radio station, right? And we were sitting there having lunch, and this epiphany had come to me on Thursday, and so I brought it out. I said there's a difference between Rastafarianism and Pan-Africanism, right? Pan-Africanism, all the true Pan-African that I've ever, because I had to go back and research, because it's been some muddying of the water with the invasion of body snatchers coming over and saying that kumbaya, kumbaya with the Chinese taking over Africa and all that. Kumbaya, okay. So I had to go back. True Pan-Africans, from what I have studied and what, I believed it to be, was that wherever we are in the globe, where we were dropped off, we were stole from one place and dropped off, that we, as those group of people, should be Pan-African and work to strengthen where we are. The strongest base of Pan-Africans, for sure, was the United States before ADOS. Well, again, we're going to move ADOS to the side for a minute. The largest concentration of black people are in Brazil, right? The strongest Pan-African movement is in the United States. And thus, so the ones that the European Americans bring over, who are Africans, who don't prescribe to Pan-Africanism, but prescribe to Kumbaya, I'll say that. That's what I would call Rastafarianism, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. So we were sitting at the table, and I was like, all the Pan-Africans I know, we're supposed to fight to do it for ourselves, and our main body of land is the continent of Africa and the different countries which should be turned into states to be the largest continental body in the world, okay, of states, Africa, the United States of Africa, right? And that's what Pan-Africanism is, which germinated starting in America, going over, black people in America going over to reconnect and bring forth togetherness, and thus bring the people who were underserved over there so they could get education here and then go back and build Africa for this eventual United States of Africa. But instead they come over and they want to take in the European lifestyle, like when they go to other places like Europe and take in the European lifestyle, try to be rich. And some of them we didn't realize that some of their people owned slaves. And they were doing more heinous, just equivalency, heinous things to the people, like burying them alive when the slave master died. As much heinous as what was going over here with feet being cut off, castrations, drawing, quartering, lynching, right? So I was like, that's what true Pan-Africanism is. Now, I said, what I've noticed is, I haven't seen one, I don't know one Rastafarian that hasn't seen a white puss that it didn't like. I haven't seen one Rastafarianism believing person that hasn't seen one white puss that it didn't like. One love.
Hi, Gina.
One heart. Let's stick together with the whites and feel alright. This is Rastafarian. Let's praise to the white Jesus and feel alright. Now this is my thing, right? And sure enough, that later that day, I saw a video that's going around on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
Where the guy is singing.
He said to his queen.
To his queen. And, to each their own. But Pan-Africanism is different than Rastafarianism. And it just proved my point even more, that there's a difference between Pan-Africanism and Rastafarianism. And that sometimes Rastafarianism mask as Pan-Africanism, but it's really not. And so we have to come down to, are you Pan-African, or are you someone who will feel that the grass is greener, the women are better? You get my point. So when people see where I come from, I'm about black women, my dude. I'm about black people taking their rightful place on the planet, right? And I also said the way it's going and the way people seem to be practicing, in my opinion, just my opinion, Rastafarianism, and always constantly doing the same mistakes again and allowing the other to get into our business, and then later it's not owned by you, it's owned by them. They have control over what you do. You keep on making the same mistake. That's why it's always a 50 to 75 year retardation, and then people are saying they're sorry, but that doesn't help that person. Then we need results now.
What's the definition of what insanity? Doing the same
thing over again and thinking that it's going to be a result. When the only thing we haven't tried totally is putting differences aside and pushing together. That's the only thing that we haven't tried. And I said that at this age, 3 years from now, I'll be 50. And you get 70, and then after that, everything else is a blessing, right? 70 score, and then after that is a blessing. So if you say 50 and 40 more years, that's 90. You know what I mean? 40 more years, you know what I'm saying? When you're 20, young and spry, and you're fighting the power and stuff, but then as you get older, you say, we not see this. We have no time to make the same mistakes. And it was funny about the Bolden movie before we move on from this.
See, this movie is that good.
No, it was something that happened before the Bolden movie. We were walking and we got on the elevator.
Oh, okay.
And then a European American family got on there. It was a mother and father and an older son. They're all older. The parents could have been in their 70s. They age faster, so it could have been 60s. But the son about in his 30s could have been.
No, I hope he wasn't in his 30s.
Right.
He actually looked like he was maybe in his
40s,
50s.
50. Okay, 50. They was 70s. But they could have been 30 and 60s, but they age faster. Just facts. That's why it's all these plastic surgeons and shit going on. But anyway, look. They get on, so the woman, I obviously she was scared because here's a black man. I got my mask on, you know what I'm saying, protected from the elements. Obviously they're afraid. So she said, so she looks at my wife. This is the whole thing. This is how you know that the European American is afraid of the black male. Is they will direct their conversation to the black female. That's males and females alike. They will not direct their conversation to the male at all, because the male is the thug. Okay. So she asked me, I was like, going to the movies? Well, first of all, why you want to know? Let's play it. Yeah, we're going to see Bolden. And then I chimed in. I make my presence known. I say, yeah, the man who is credited with creating jazz. So we get on the elevator, and she says, well, I'm not too familiar with jazz. I looked at myself, okay, so you're either two types. You're either the one that would call rape and get the black man lynched, kind of like Emmett Till. Or two, you're one who are clutching your pearls now as an older woman, but you were in there getting the dick. Okay. All right. So you're either one of those. Oh, I'm not too in jazz. And that's also a catchphrase, because jazz was jive music, and that's code word for nigga music. Okay. So just telling you that that's something that happened beforehand, and you're sitting up there and it's like, things don't change. And the son is in his 40s, which means he's got to have kids maybe in their 20s or in their teens, and this cycle is this vicious, evil, disgusting cycle is going to keep on going. The Confederacy wants to rise again, but the South already rose. And you know how the South rose again? Through hip-hop music. That's how it rose again. Sorry, it didn't rise the way you thought it was going to rise. It rose through hip-hop music. Let's see what Shiny said here. Let's see, truth about the mixtapes.
So she's chiming in on the watch party.
Right, watch party, yeah. No. I didn't want that to happen.
What is it doing? Is it doing updates?
Okay, look. So look. So that's saying that. So my new theory on it, and you know, it's not changing now. My new theory on this is about Pan-Africanism versus Rastafarianism. And what goes along with that is One Love. They took Bob Marley's situation, took his song, and because it became a tourist attraction thing to make money, because they impoverished the Jamaican population and made it in drugs and all that, and they impoverished it. So the only way out is to be nice and smile, like Barbados. Same concept. So they take that and they use it. So that's what it is. And wherever you can get money from is what you revere. So that's my concept on it, and that's my thought press on it, my opinion. And that's what it is. We are not. There are some people who are masking, saying that they are Pan-Africans, and really they are Rastafarians in thought process, in the 75 to 100 year retardation of that form. We talked about that. Go back and watch it. Okay. So now we talked about the Crazy Dee work ethic.
Right.
We've talked about the film review, music review show. We talked about the 29 years. We opened up the show with that.
Right.
We talked about Charles Joseph Buddy Bolden.
Yes.
He was known as King Bolden in New Orleans.
Excellent film. Go see it.
Creator of jazz.
Yep. Pioneer. New Orleans.
We talked about Duke Ellington.
New Orleans jazz.
We talked about Duke Ellington.
Right.
Louis Armstrong. Taking the A train, and definitely going to play black and tan fantasy. He was telling us back in 29 what we are.
Right.
We are tan. Right. European Americans and Europeans do not tan, they burn. All right. So now we're coming to
the documentary by Fab Five Freddy
called
The Grass is Greener on Netflix.
Now, to keep along with the theme, within the film, I'm going to fast forward here before we get to the main, but to get back to what the thesis of the film is. But let's fast forward to where they talk about how now that it's being legalized, people are coming in like John Boehner, super host. But anyway, like John Boehner from Ohio, who is getting into the cannabis situation, and they believed that weed was so horrible. It was up there, just worse. Classified as A1 or 1A or whatever it is, classification, which makes it, like cocaine, like horrible. But anyway, look, there's a guy who is into the cultivation. They were at a Fab Five Freddy was at a convention for the weed
oh yeah,
people,
that was
right?
a great scene.
And he sits up there and says, and then so Fab Five Freddy must ask him a question. What do you think about the people who are? Well, you hear him say it off camera, off screen.
Right.
He says, "What do you think about the people who are, are incarcerated for selling marijuana or selling cannabis?
Right.
Wouldn't they be great business people?" Right. And he says,
"No."
He says, "No, they couldn't be great business people because they were selling it on the streets." And so this guy is a European American, and it's that whole through line which that movie talks about, which Bolden talks about, where it said, why should we elevate you to us when you're so immoral, you're so uneducated, you wouldn't be able to do it because you don't have you are not good businessmen. You see? So right there, I'm sure Fab Five Freddy was just stunned.
Yeah, that's why he put all this in his documentary, which was great. Oh, you left out the other part when he said, no, the look of the cannabis with industry now is a better look.
A better look, which is a dog whistle, which says that the face.
Yeah.
The face of it is better because they demoralized the face, right? of what it was. Originally he said it was illegal. It was horrible.
He did a great job on this documentary, because all you have to do is put the mic up to people and they will tell you the really how they feel.
Do you remember people? I took it down for certain reasons, but do you remember, which is not for this reason, but do you remember when we were doing the Las Vegas Black Food Festival and we were walking, I had started the stream, and I had parked in this parking lot, and then the European American guy comes from across the street and says, "You can't park there." I said, "Well, let me tell you first that you're on film." And what were you saying? He was like, "Oh, well," did he change his whole tune? He said, "Well, it sure is good that you're filming, because then people wouldn't be assholes." Well, what you're saying is you were an asshole. I'll leave that. Put the pin in that and move that over to the side. So, this is what we're dealing with, people. And people who believe that it'll be any different, you are sorely mistaken, and they will own your stuff in the end.
Yeah. And so this documentary, it covers the history of illegal cannabis in the United States, and then it's filled with great celebrity interviews.
It features Damon Marley, Snoop, Be Real, Killer Mike,
Be Real
and
from
more.
Cypress Hill.
That's right. And talks about how weed, cannabis, and they named it to make it seem more illegal because of the brown people that were selling it, the Mexicans.
Right.
They called it marijuana. Yeah. They spelled it marijuana with an H instead of the J. The J comes later. During J. Edgar Hoover, they changed it and made it look even more like it was something that came from over there, a J instead of an H. So instead of marijuana, marijuana. Okay, so.
But wait a minute. He did a great job, because the timeline of the documentary, it begins in the 1920s jazz era. And then again, he mentions Duke Ellington. They show footage, actually. Louis Armstrong, Billie Holiday, they were all like targets under racist policies.
That's right, because if they caught you with weed, which they classify as a drug, they would take your cabaret card away.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, they put Billie Holiday.
And they put her through it. But also what they found was, so they tied it to jazz, right? And put a black face on it. You see how these things keep coming around, these tropes keep coming around. Yeah. So now that the lounges are open, they put a black face on it just in case it turns into the Box Rebellion, and look that up, Box Rebellion. If it turns into like the opiate rebellion, then they can say that black people did it, right? So they put it with jazz, and they said jazz is jive, and it's bad, and what they're doing is they are influencing young, impressionable, lily, European white women who will go down there and be taken advantage of.
Yeah, that was in the documentary. It was in the documentary.
You see, so these tropes move through these things. So this is what it tells you, and it goes through the whole piece. So they tie jazz, but the biggest weed seller doing jazz was a Jewish man. I can't think of his name. You're going to watch the documentary to see it. But he was a Jewish man who had the best weed, and they would put it in the music.
Yeah,
kind of
his
like
name.
Yeah, he put his name in the music, and he was there, and he was once, and then they made a big deal over this. He was once arrested and put in jail for having it, and they had put him on. They had segregated, segregated the jail, had him in the white population. He said, "Warden, I think you made a mistake. I'm black. I'm not over here." And he asked to be moved over with the black people because he felt more at home. Kind of like the people, like what I talked about, Hoagie Carmichael, who made Stardust and all that. Certain people who feel at home, but then they are able later to have the trappings of living in a nice mansion in a neighborhood while they were redlining and blocking black people from being in those places. So look,
Plus, too, wait, also in the film, they also talked to people who were personally affected by drug convictions.
Right.
So they talked to family members as well, and their attorneys.
The guy that was in prison for 14 years for 2 joints.
Crazy.
You know, putting them away.
Meanwhile,
right?
the officer that killed Philando Castile
got off.
Philando Castile.
Right.
Yeah.
So you see how these things are. So this is what this
George
tells
Zimmerman got off.
Right, he got off. Right, but you know, you're sending people to jail for 2 joints. You know, but what they didn't tell you in there, I saw this on the History Channel. DuPont during that time in the 1920s was coming out with nylon.
Right. And
hemp, which is also can be made from out of cannabis, was making clothing, and he thought that the hemp would overtake his nylon, so he had some people in Congress, and they wrote up the bills to legalize, to make it illegal to have cannabis, hemp, marijuana, all that, and they were able to pass a law, so they killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Who's growing it? Those brown people from Mexico, because they wanted to cut off the border. Right. And so that's how all of this started. You know, it started before, during the wars and Mexican-American War and all that. Remember the Alamo and all that. But they were able to cut off the border because they said when they come across, they're bringing this illegal substance. And from there it goes on and it pushes on. And they put out fake reports that that it causes schizophrenia and all kinds of stuff. But what they found out was when Nixon had his people do a report on it, they found out that it was the total opposite.
Yeah, it wasn't true.
And so, see this film. Yeah. The Grass is Greener by Fab Five Freddy on Netflix.
Yep, check it out.
So, what would you rate the film with the history that it told?
You know what? I would give it a 10 because it was informative. And what did I tell you? I said the graphics is well done. I said this film is over already. I said it was so interesting. It was just a lot of information, but it was absorbable the way it was presented to you. Well done. It moved. There was no dull moments at all.
No doldrums at it at all.
Yeah, and the history.
The Bolden film didn't have any doldrums either.
None at all. And then Fab Five Freddy, you also learned about his background, about his family, and his father was a musician, and so you learned a lot about Fab Five Freddy as well. And so it was just well done, and I learned a lot.
So I give it a 10.
Yeah. Great documentary.
And in closing, before we go, did you see Game of Thrones last Sunday? Were you not on the edge of your seats with Game of Thrones last Sunday? I mean, that was just, you didn't know how it was going to end, but we're not going to say for people who haven't seen. You didn't know how that was going to end, but the invading horde was coming, and you did not know how this was going to end. Some of the favorites, oh my goodness. So you did not know. Game of Thrones last Sunday was incredible.
Can't wait to watch it tonight.
And we're getting ready to go watch it right now. So
And The Shy, you gotta check out The Shy.
That's right.
Too.
That's right. So in closing, this has been another robust, extraordinarily informative episode of the Film Review. Movies, music, culture, politics, and society. We are the husband and wife team celebrating 29 years, people. 29 years.
They flew by.
Yeah, they flew by. And we're going to be bringing special shows talking about that and everything. And I want to say happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you.
You know what I mean? And we're the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy Dee.
Tracy.
And we review movies, music, culture, politics, and society on the Film Review. We will see you next Sunday. This is another great episode of the Film Review. We are the husband and wife team. We are the husband and wife team. We are the husband and wife team. Stay tuned. We're the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy Dee. And this is the film review. Stay tuned. We got a lot to talk about. We are the husband and wife team that review movies, music, culture, politics, and society. This is the film review. Movies, music, culture, politics, and society. We're the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy Dee.
Tracy.
And we review movies, music, culture, politics, and society. Sunday at 5:30 on Crazy Dee page on Facebook. Live stream. The film review. Movies, music, culture, politics, and society. This is the film review.